Well, hello, it's Kesha. Welcome and welcome back. So before we get into the Aquarian chapters 11 and we'll see how far we go, I found, remember last week or the week before when I was talking to you about the incense, the frankincense and the myrrh and the resins, and I was so sure that I had it. And it turns out I did. I just couldn't put my finger on it. But in these last couple of weeks, I've been moving things around and it popped up. So I thought I'd take a minute just to show you what it is and how it works and why I said I didn't like to use it because I thought it was dangerous. But I have these charcoal discs. Let's see, let me get out of the pack. So this is what they look like. They've got a little well in the center here. And so this is the cup that I'm going to put them in. This is some sand, and that's just a little ring to kind of keep it all together. It's not necessary, but I found it and decided to use it. So what you do is you light the edge. You're not supposed to do this with your fingers, so I'm going to go ahead and holding it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the cup. And so what you're supposed to do is light the edge. You can see. So lighting the edge of the charcoal. And it should be lit. Okay, it's not yet. I blow on it like to see, like when I see the red of the fire, that's how I know that it's taken and then it's actually lit. Sometimes it takes just a minute or two. Okay, so now when I blow on it, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little bit, it'll glow red. Okay, so it's crackling. That lets me know that it's actually lit and ready. So I'm gonna put that down. And then this is my little bag of resin. So this actually happens to be copal. I had frankincense and myrrh, but I think I burned those all when I was first learning how to use this method. But they're all, it's the same type of thing. It's a, you know, they tap the trees, they get the sap, and then it comes off in these little crystal globules. And then you put them in the well of your little charcoal piece, and as the charcoal heats up and the heat moves across the charcoal and burns, it will light the resin that's on top and begin to melt it, and then you'll see little whiffs of smoke come off, and it's fragrant, and that is and then the resin will start to bubble, and that's how it burns and senses the air, or scents the air. So we're going to have that to enjoy while I do our today's reading, and then maybe I'll figure out a way to come back at the end and show you how it's progressed as it burns. Is it moving? Yeah, so I'm just going to trust that and leave that alone while we do our reading, and then it takes a minute for the charcoal to move across the little lip before it hits into the well. And of course the resin's in the well, so it takes a minute or two for the charcoal to burn over to get to it. So we've got some time to read before that begins to show that it's working. All right, so we are on chapter 11. This is a continuation of Elihu's lessons. He's going to be talking about Buddhism and the precepts of the Buddha and the mysteries of Egypt. Again, Elihu taught. He said, the Indian priest became corrupt. Brahm was forgotten in the streets. The rights of men were trampled in the dust. So if you remember last week, we talked about India and Brahm, and the Hebrews also appreciated Brahm, and they named one of their first fathers, Abram, who became Abraham. Anyway, going back to chapter 11. Okay. And then a mighty master came, a Buddha of enlightenment, who turned away from wealth and all the honors of the world, and found the silence in the quiet groves and caves, and he was blessed. He preached a gospel of a higher life and taught man how to honor man. He had no doctrine of the gods to teach. He just knew man, and so his creed was justice, love, and righteousness. I quote for you a few of many of the helpful words which Buddha spoke. Hate is a cruel word. If men hate you, regard it not, and you can turn the hate of men to love and mercy and goodwill, and mercy is as large as all the heavens. And there is good enough for all. With good destroy the bad, with generous deeds make avarice ashamed. With truth make straight the crooked lines that error draws, for error is but truth distorted, gone astray. And pain will follow him who speaks or acts with evil thoughts, as does the wheel the foot of him who draws the cart. He is a greater man who conquers self than he who kills 1,000 men in war. He is the noble man who is himself what he believes that what other men should be. Return to him who does you wrong your purest Return to him who does you wrong your purest love, and he will cease from doing wrong. For love will purify the heart of him who is beloved as truly as it purifies the heart of him who loves. The words of Buddha are recorded in the Indian sacred books. Attend to them, for they are part of the instructions of the holy breath. The land of Egypt is the land of secret things. The mysteries of the ages lie land-bound in our temples and our shrines. The masters of all times and climes come here to learn, and when your sons have grown to manhood, they will finish all their studies in Egyptian schools. But I have said enough. Tomorrow is the rising of the sun. We meet again. Chapter 12. Salome's lessons. Now, when the morning sun arose, the masters and their pupils were all in the sacred grove. Speaking of the sacred grove, we forgot to do our meditation. We're going to go back to our reading. Now, when the morning sun arose, the masters and their pupils all were in the sacred grove. Salome was the first to speak. She said, "Behold the sun. It manifests the power of God who speaks to us through sun and moon and stars, through mountain, hill, and vale, through flower and plant and tree. God sings for us through bird and harpsichord and human voice. He speaks to us through wind and rain and thunder roll. Why should we not bow down and worship at his feet? God speaks to hearts apart, and hearts apart must speak to him, and this is prayer. It is not prayer to shout at God, to stand or sit or kneel and tell him all about the sins of men. It is not prayer to tell the Holy One how great he is, how good he is, how strong and how compassionate. God is not man to be bought by praise of men. Prayer is the ardent wish that every way of life be light, that every act be crowned with good, that every living thing be prospered by our ministry. A noble deed, a helpful word is prayer, a fervent and effectual prayer. The fount of prayer is in the heart. By thought, not words, the heart is carried up to God. Where it is blessed, then let us pray. They prayed, but not a word was said. But in that holy silence, every heart was blessed. And then Elihu spoke. He said to Mary and Elizabeth, "Our words are said. You need not tarry longer here. The call has come. The way is clear. You may return unto your native land. A mighty work is given to you to do. You shall direct the minds that will direct the world. Your sons are set apart to lead men up to righteous thoughts and words and deeds, to make men know the sinfulness of sin, to lead them from the adoration of the lower self and all elusive things, and make them conscious of the self that lives with Christ and God. In preparation for their work, your sons must walk in many thorny paths. Fierce trials and temptations they will meet. Like other men, their loads will not be light, and they will weary be and faint. And they will know the pangs of hunger and of thirst, and without cause they will be mocked, imprisoned, scourged. To many countries they will go, and at the feet of many masters they will sit, for they must learn like other men. But we have said enough. The blessings of the 3 and of the 7 who stand before the throne will surely rest upon you evermore. Thus closed the lessons of Elihu and Salome. 3 years they taught their pupils in the sacred grove, and if their lessons all were written in a book, lo, it would be a mighty book, and of what they said we have the sum. Now Mary, Joseph, and Elizabeth, with Jesus and his harbinger, set forth upon their homeward way. They went not by Jerusalem, for Archelaus reigned. They journeyed by the bitter sea, and when they reached En-gedi hills, they rested in the home of Joshua, a near kin, and here Elizabeth and John abode. But Joseph, Mary, and their son went by the Jordan way, and after certain days they reached their home in Nazareth. 2 short chapters they may be, but a lot still was said. I don't know if you can see the smoke, but my copal has risen. So I'll show you what we have here. So you can see how it's coming off, and you can see the white part of the charcoal. That's where it's burned through already, and it's now moving across the plane of the well, and that's what's creating our scent. So that was just a little show and tell on how to burn your resins, copal, incense, myrrh, and whatnot. All right, so reading of prayer. I realized we forgot our meditation, so why don't we just take a moment and breathe and center before we get into noting what was interesting about this reading. Just take a deep breath in and release it out. Another deep breath in and out. Just feel yourself present and whole. Centered and calm. We here are one, and we're ready to continue. All right, so if last week Elihu talked about Brahman in India, we have now moved to Buddha in the East, or in the Far East. So what I like that he notes here about Buddha is that Buddha is not teaching of a deity, and he himself did not place himself as a deity. He simply taught how man can honor man. He went within, he sat in the groves and he meditated, and his creed was justice, love, and righteousness. So any man or woman, person that aspires to live those ideals is one with the Buddha and expresses that Buddhahood. Something that I think, so it mentions here that a Buddha there came a Buddha of enlightenment, one who turned away from wealth. Oftentimes when it comes to the discussion of the religious, there is this idea that you are more spiritual if you have turned away from wealth. And really what that means is not wealth in and of itself, because it is neutral. It's just a medium of exchange, an accumulation of potential. But it is the focus on wealth simply for itself, and how it gives rise to the lower or the carnal self and those more base expressions. So it does not mean that one is more pious if they turn away from wealth. What he's demonstrating is it is more pious to turn within and to realize the greater treasures of the self. Money as a medium exchange is simply that. It's not that it should be eschewed and somehow that makes you more pious and more spiritual. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear, because too oftentimes people get tripped up on that. And then if you're moving into judgment onto whether against either yourself or to others as to, oh, well, if they have lots of wealth and they can't possibly be spiritual, then you're giving over to the carnal self just as easily as the person who is focused on simply the attainment of wealth. Instead, we need to focus on justice, love, and righteousness. Hate, he says, is a cruel word. If men hate you, regard it not. Don't give it attention. Instead, feed it love. And mercy is as boundless and as large as all the heavens. So it's infinite, right? And similar to another lesson that we'll hear about turning the other cheek, it is, if someone is coming at you with hate, don't return hate back to them. That puts you on their level. Go into yourself and rise above and show love. Because love is always the dominant power. And it says, with good, you destroy the bad. With generous deeds, you make avarice or greed ashamed. So, we're not going to focus on what bad people are doing to others or, to ourselves. We're going to focus on putting out good. I love that he says, error is but truth distorted. Error is but truth distorted. As if, truth is a singular and straight path, but where we err, it's that truth has been distorted and it goes off on its own, it goes off on different tangents. Yeah. Then he talks about the focus of Egypt, that it's always been the place where people have learned of the secret mysteries. And then we move into Salome's lessons and her comments on prayer. Prayer is the ardent wish that every way of life be made light, that every act be crowned with good, that every living thing be prospered by our ministry. I think there was a time, in fact, in one of my offices, I had that on the board, on the whiteboard behind me, and I would look at that every day. And yeah, it's true. It's not that prayer is, the beseeching of God for something good to happen in this moment. It is just that, it is prayer when I genuinely wish that every step that I take and those that I love and everyone else be made light and be made easy. That is prayer. That, every act that I take, it's done from a space of love. Not regard to outcome, but my intention is so pure and it's done in love, and I'm doing it at the best of my ability and at the highest level of awareness I have in that moment. And that every living thing be prospered by a ministry. That everyone that comes in contact with us, every action and interaction be made better. One of the things I like that I do for me, and that I think is an extension of this, is that I want all of my interactions, I want people to have been made better by my presence or by my action on something. And that is, that's an active prayer. How I interact with people and how I choose to interact with them is my active prayer. Prayer is not shouting at God and telling him about the sins of man. That's really more akin to complaining. Because if God knows all and sees all, he knows about these other people. You talk about how it affects you and how you want to be healed of that pain, but God doesn't need you to sit and complain about how these other people are so wrong. You being in judgment takes you away from the focus of yourself anyway. The fount of prayer is in the heart. It's by thought, not words. and the heart is carried up to God. So, you know, you can't say something that you don't think, but we want to center our thoughts on what is good and what is of the heart. And then Elihu and Salome, you know, let Mary and Elizabeth know that they're teaching. Their time is done. That they're now to go off and raise their boys to do the work that they will do. And they were 3 years studying the lessons of Salome and Elihu, and those 3 years of lessons were encapsulated in the things that we've covered here. There's this other part too. God speaks to hearts apart, and hearts apart must speak to him. This is prayer. We each have our own relationship with God, and he speaks to us differently. And so as you cultivate your inner awareness, you'll be able to hear God better. I think that was all that he does set the stage, or Salome does set the stage for letting them know that even though their children, John and Jesus, are destined to do a great work, they will still meet with trial. I didn't expect to be affected by that statement so much, but you know, I think what so deeply speaks to me in that is that even though, like for me personally, even though I know there is this something great that is within me, and I get upset that I haven't gotten there faster, and that I'm not there already, or that it's been a difficult path to get even here, much less whatever there is. Even though the end, as big and beautiful as it is, has already been ordained and it's already been set, there's still this walk, there's still this journey, and you will meet with trial. You will meet with difficulty. And yes, the load will not be light. And for me, it has not been. You'll be mocked. Yeah. Scourged. Yes. Imprisoned. Not in an actual prison, but I did go through a period of very extreme financial embarrassment and lack of movement that might as well have been. At least in my world, I don't take anything away or compare what I have experienced to someone who's actually been in prison, but there are different types of prisons, and I have been in my own for a time, but I've forgotten, and that is quite a lesson, just to be reminded that even though the end is great, the way to it may not be easy. And so those close the lessons of Elihu and Salome, and our families have gone back to their respective places, and we will leave our reading here and pick it up next week. Okay, so that has been nice. That has been fun. That's been good and interesting. All right, so I'm smoking up the environment here with this copal. It's going pretty hard, and well, my heart is made lighter, one, by having had this time with you and sharing of this book, but also having read what it just reminded me of. So I take that into my week going forward. Leave me a comment or two as to what you get out of this, and we will look forward to our reading next week. It's been fun. I'll talk to you. Bye.